I'm making this video because I was chatting with Damon from MBTV a little earlier today, and I asked him, have you ever heard of, or have you done much reading about the concept of natural states? And he said, no, I haven't heard of it. And then I kind of thought about it after we chatted about it, and I was like, I never really see anything about it online, and it's really a helpful concept for me. So I thought I would share it using the NTs as my example because I know NTs best, and I have a few examples in mind, and it totally applies to them and me. I read about it in Kiersey, and please understand me too. But I looked on my Kindle, on my iPad, and I did a word search for some of these words that I'm going to tell you, and I couldn't find it. So it must not have been in there. So I'll try to figure out where exactly I read about this. But in the meantime, I'll explain it using the NTs. All right, so here we have our NTs, and hang on. Whenever I hold it up, then my whole face goes dark. I should get some colored paper, but whatever. Our natural state is determined by our top two functions here, which also determine whether we are a judger or perceiver. This would mean that your natural state is determined by whether you have a extroverted judging function before you have an extroverted perceiving function. So if you have an extroverted perceiving function first, that makes you a P. If you have an extroverted information gathering function, which is ENTP and INTP down here, because we both have NE. TI is an introverted decision-making function, but it's not an extroverted one. So that makes us perceivers, because when we're looking at the outside world, what we're doing first when it comes to the E is we're just looking at it. Our decisions are going on inside of us. And then you go up to ENTJ and INTJ, and you can see immediately for ENTJ, we've got an extroverted judging function, and then it comes second for INTJ, but they have NI here. So because this NI is happening inside of them, even for INTJ, it still doesn't have to do with the world around them, so it still makes them a J. So what this means about our natural state is that, this is so fascinating to me, and I can't believe I haven't thought of this to talk about yet. There's a mobilized as the natural state, and there's demobilized as the natural state. This one wants to be doing things all the time. This one wants to be working on a project. I think we know that about ENTJs and INTJs I've known as well. ENTP and INTP, we don't want to be doing that all the time. We want to be doing anything else but actually working on the project. We want to be thinking about it. So I'll describe ENTP and INTP first. We are basically, our favorite place to be, our favorite little land is to be in TI, NE, looping all over each other land. That is our favorite thing to do. We would rather think about it and ponder about it, talk about it, draw plans about it. We would rather, but ENTPs for sure. I don't know. You INTPs will have to tell me. Like, a lot of the time, if I get an idea, if it's a really inspiring idea, then I'm up and I'm off and I want to do it, So in that way, ENTPs can almost, I think, sometimes look like an INT or an ENTJ at least. Can sometimes look like that. But if we're going to get up and do something right away, then it's less thought out than an ENTJ or an INTJ for sure. Because ENTJ and INTJ, they have TE. So they're thinking about all of the consequences of their actions. They've got the TENI duo. So they're thinking of contingency plans. They're thinking of the efficient ways to do it. They're thinking what could go wrong. They're finding the best method. You know what I mean? ENTP, we may have done that. So if we have an actual plan and then we're getting up to do it, then you could think that we might have thought of some of those things as well. If we just jump up and spring into action, though, if we automatically mobilize, then chances are that we have not thought it through. Like ENTP tries to make a pool. It's called learn as you go. It's spontaneous. And even sometimes if we have sat down to make a plan, Usually if we sit down and make plans for too long, we'll just never do it because it's way more fun making the plans. And that is definitely true for INTP, because I think INTP could just make plans forever and never actually do anything, and that's probably why they're really good like architects a lot of the times. Or um, I think INTPs could be artists too, can't you guys? Like my INTP, she she loves making cartoons, like concepts by cartoon and things like that. Sorry, this always happens. Basically, we like to stay in any TI land. Any here for ENTP, it's like information gathering. So I want to be, hanging out. And this is what I told Damon, is that like I want to be hanging out like with my 57 tabs open. I want to be looking for things online, like whatever just might come to my mind. I want to be on Twitter, so I'll have my, either on my computer, but a lot of the time I actually, because in my demobilized state, I want to expend as little energy as possible. I would rather have my phone, which is way smaller, and that's harder to read, but it doesn't matter because I can lean like over here or wherever instead of having to actually like spread my body out and like reach for my computer or pull it over here. Like it's just, there's something that's too much work about actually getting to the computer, even though it's right in front of me, and like having to sit, because ENTPs, I don't know about INTPs, but we're known for our terrible posture. And like I just get in the most ridiculous positions, and a lot of the time they're not even comfortable, but like I'm so intently focused on whatever. So I've got like my Twitter, I'll have Twitter, so I'm reading about all the crazy stuff that's going on in politics, and then I'll have all my browsers anytime I need to look something up or whatever, so then I'll switch over. Sometimes it also is on my computer, but more often than not, it's all on my little phone. It'd be very helpful if I had a bigger phone, but I've got this iPhone 5C and it still works. And planned obsolescence be damned. I just said this on a blog the other day. Unbelievable. I think I've mentioned before the unbelievable blog, but it's debates between a Christian and an atheist, or sometimes somebody that's Jewish and a Christian, or Christian and Christian with totally different views. It's my favorite podcast. So I was writing on the blog. That's the other. So I'll get on blogs. I'll read. Like it's like mostly thinking, but a little bit of interaction involved as well. But my NE just wants to like find information. Like so that's just what I'm. And then my TI is just kind of churning away in the background. So it's like many topics. Not getting too deep into any of them, but that's my happy place. And I told Damon I can also, if I'm working on Photoshop, if I'm doing like a Photoshop, then that also feels like my demobilized place. It feels like it doesn't feel like mobilization to me. Even if I'm doing something, and I can do it for hours. I can comment and write and look things up, and I can do that all day and not even realize how much time has gone by. Like I can waste hours doing that. That's why knowing about this is very helpful for me. So for INTP, I'm going to imagine that they're a lot like us, honestly. They're a lot like ENTPs, but they are going to go more in depth with it. So, oh, maybe this is better. I could hold it off to the side. So that INTP is going to still, like, they might have a few topics in mind that they can spend all day thinking about, and then they're going to use their NE to gather information about these few topics, and then be like slowly still like building whatever. And then they might also be chatting with people. I don't know, INTPs, do you like need the social interaction when you're in your demobilized natural state? Like, do you like to have somebody around to bounce ideas off of, or in your demobilized state, do you like to just let the TI churn? I'm curious about that, because for me, I like to be by myself. My demobilized state is by myself. Like I want to be by myself so that my thoughts are not interrupted, and I could just explore whatever I want. I don't have to like cater to anyone else's like noise or like whatever it is that anybody else wants to do. So even though an ENTP is an extrovert, a lot of the time I think the demobilized natural state is to be alone with no demands on you, so that you're any can wander. It can just do whatever it wants, and it doesn't even have to be right here. The part of why I like Lyft too is I can listen to my podcast, so I can gather information and think, while I'm working and getting things done, and it's freaking awesome. It's great, so I can learn so much. But even though I'm working and I do get exhausted doing it, it's almost like a pseudo demobilized state sometimes, because I'm not up and like concentrating on, any manual labor, and I'm not having to work on any specific projects while I'm driving around. And even when I get to talk to people, even when I pick people up, even then I'm like using NE and TI, so it's like the only mobilized part of it is that I got to get up in my car and I have to do all these physical things. Like I have to move my body around. The physical aspect of it is the mobilized part. But or if it was like work, like if I was still in corporate America and I was doing a project, then that would still be mobilized. That wouldn't be like fun time. Actually, that's not true because I got so crazy about my work that it actually kind of did turn into fun time. Like I would be demobilized, but like obsessively making and planning things for work. But that wasn't really fun, which I now realize. I mean, that was a waste of time. But I learned a lot, so whatever. Okay, back to the topic. This is an ENTP video. It's gonna go this way. So, yeah, that is our happy place. We ENTP and INTP will just do anything to get out of mobilizing, and as far as or put it off a lot of the time as long as they can. And it helped me realize this is why I'm such a procrastinator, because my natural state is to be in this checked out, NETI zone. Like I want to be up here. I want to be up here with like my thoughts and my information gathering, and those are my top two functions, and INTP as well. So obviously that's going to be our natural state. That's what we started using first, and that's what we're best at. So then ENTJ and INTJ, their top two, their happy place is to be organizing and working on problems, and using their logical analysis, not on their like ideas on the inside so much, but on the world around them. They want to see a product for what it is that's churning inside of them. And then they've got their NI, which is so this is like their decision making. A lot of the time, that's why ENTJ can, I think I've said before, but ENTJ will talk out loud, and they're more likely to at least talk out loud and actually solve problems as they're talking out loud. They're going to come to conclusions that things will start to make sense. They could say things out loud and actually kind of visualize it all happening, right? Whereas this is their brainstorming function, and this is happening inside. So even though this is very orderly and this is making sense of things on the outside, this is a very creative function, which comes first for INTJ. So INTJ is most likely not going to be the one that's talking out loud about their TI, but they are brainstorming, their information gathering first, which is their brainstorming function, which you'll notice ENTP does out loud. ENTP brainstorms out loud. This is my brainstorming function. And if anybody ever wants to listen to me, I can figure out, like, writing and talking out loud. I have so many aha moments that way, because that is my brainstorming function, and something about getting it out a lot of the time. You follow your stream of consciousness, but the decisions all happen on the inside, where then INTP, same thing, but they're doing the decisions first, and then all of the NE, I don't know. INTPs, I've heard INTPs go off on any tangents too when they're trying to figure things out. So INTPs, you'll have to chime in there. And INTJs, you'll have to chime in as well and let me know if you ever do any of that out loud thinking that I know that ENTJs do. Again, these are about the outside world, their decision making here, their extroverted decision making process is extroverted thinking, is making things happen in real time. And since that's their, in their top two, then they're naturally, this one's interacting with the world first, and this one's second, but it's still in the top two. So their natural state is to be mobilized. Their natural state is to be working on the things, that their NI is brainstorming about. They want to see products for it. They want to have goals. They want to get them accomplished. They don't want to sit around thinking about it forever. Even though they might make really great plans, but the ultimate goal is not to come up with lots of possibilities forever, or that's not the fun of it for them. The fun of it for them is to get up and make it happen, or get a team together and make it happen, or assemble whatever needs to be assembled, So they, just like their natural state is to be mobilized, for them it's more about the outcome, about the goal, than it is the process, which is one of the questions that are often on those personality test, right? Um, are you more concerned with the process, or do you enjoy the process more or the outcome? So this here, who's mobilized, the mobilizers in their natural state prefer or place importance on the goal, on why we're doing this. While ENTP and INTP down here, we don't care so much about the outcome and the goal a lot of the time. You know, we care about the process. We want to look at things from lots of different angles. We want to find the best way to do things. And also, mobilizers up here, uh, judgers, they another aspect of it for them is that these guys, they can change their plan to get to their goal. That's okay with them. But because they've made a goal, it's in the external world, you know, it's around them, it's conceptual, it's whatever it is, but it's going to have there's a tangible goal that ENTJ and INTJ have. So, using their creative function, their brainstorming function, they are fine with ditching plans that don't work, you know, as long as they are still going to be getting to their ultimate goal. Whatever it was that they started off with, ENTJ and INTJ want to end up at that goal. You know, they like to, whatever it is in their head that they want to do, they want to charge through and they want to achieve that. They do not want to ditch that goal. They want to get off the island, you know? So they are capable of whatever plans were in motion to get to that goal. Ditch it, get a new one, ditch it, get a new one, ditch it, get a new one, which, like I've said before, is one of the characteristics of highly successful people, right? Is that you're able to constantly change your plans, but keep a consistent goal in mind. So it's probably a lot of why ENTJs and INTJs can be so good at getting shit done. Where ENTP and INTP down here, it's just the opposite. We are much better at we are have no problem changing that final goal. If that's not what works, like if something else, if during the creative process it becomes apparent that something else would be better, or somebody else has a better idea, or there's you know, new information comes to light that shows that, okay, maybe this wasn't the best idea after all, then ENTP and INTP, we're fine with that. You know, we can change our goal. And the downside of that for ENTJ and INTJ is that sometimes they can be so focused on the goal that that they will miss new information that is coming in, because they're just kind of, they can get very tunnel visioned, you know, so they might not see things that might be popping up that might be helpful or whatever. So where ENTP and INTP, you know, we're okay with changing that end goal. You know, if it turns out to not have been the right choice or whatever, we're not as committed to it. And a lot of the times as well, we love the process so much. We love thinking. We love like trying to figure out the right way to do something and brainstorming and analyzing and coming up with a lot of different ways to do something. So ENTP and INTP, we can get so caught up with all the possibilities that we miss the goal, pretty much. I hope that did a good job of explaining that. It really helps me to know this about myself. Because, you know, I've always been a procrastinator and I've always liked to sit around thinking, and I don't know, or even just doing Photoshop. There's something about that feels like brainstorming a lot of the time. And even with Photoshop, sometimes I have problems actually finishing it, because sometimes with Photoshop, I think part of the reason it feels like my natural state is that it's brainstorming. It's like, what do I want to be in this? What do I want? You know, so you're constantly brainstorming to like bring together a whole picture. And I think there's something about that my any TI just completely loves, and that makes a lot of sense too for an INTP. You know, if there's any INTPs out there that like art or putting things together like that, it makes sense too if there's INTP architects out there, since that's always one of the ones they say for INTPs. But I feel like it would make sense for INTPs as well, regarding some kind of art or visual representation or visual way to work out what's going on in your head. Um, but it helps me to know that about myself, because for one thing, I know that, okay, this is my natural state. It's not necessarily just that I'm being lazy, you know, it's that my brain is actually going, like, I'm constantly learning, you know, I'm always looking up things, I'm always thinking, I'm always putting things together, that I'm doing the little writing about it here and there, like on blogs or on Twitter or wherever it might be, or like even ideas for a video, or even just texting, you know, a friend or whatever. Like that helps me then want to get into the mobilized state a lot of the time. Not always, but it helped mobilize me to make this video, just chatting with Damon, right? It helps me to know that, like, I'm not just totally being lazy, and actually I'm doing something that is very natural for my personality. And it also helps me because I know that if I am sitting around doing that and I'm thinking and I'm learning and I'm reading, I know that if I'm doing that, then there is a great chance that if I don't watch myself, I will do it for 15 hours and it will be midnight. Like, you know, I've already been doing it today for too long, but I was really busy yesterday and I was exhausted. So I told Damon, my life is a series of lily pad jumps to my next demobilized state. So that kind of tells you how it feels to be a natural state demobilizer, because whatever it is that INTP or me are doing, if we're up and we're active or we're working on a project, what we really want to be doing is getting back to the demobilized state, you know, where the pressure's off, the accelerator is off. We want to be coasting and we want to be out of the car entirely, you know, even if we really like working on a project, because that's not to say that all we want to do is just sit around and do nothing, and because that's not the true. And once I get into my mobilized state, once I finally get there, I can stay mobilized for a really long time. And I told this to Damon too. Like, once I get there, then I can be mobilized and mobilized and mobilized. You know, I won't realize I'm tired. A lot of the time I won't realize I'm hungry, you know. Like I'll go drive or something for like hours. Sometimes I've been out for 10 to 12 hours before, and I feel like I'm you know, the whole time kind of amped, especially if it's really busy and I've got something to do and my mind is going, you know, but the second it's like not busy, or the second I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time, maybe I do want to go home. As soon as my mind switches, as soon as my mind has decided that I no longer want to be mobilized, then I'm completely exhausted. You know, if I've been out for a long time, and I cannot, like, I can't imagine doing anything else. As soon as my mind turns that corner, then I am immediately like, I said to him, the balloon instantly deflates. It's just like, so we're like 3 minutes ago, I was amped and I was like, I can do this for hours. As soon as my mind is made up that I am no longer mobilized, then I'm just like, and it is almost impossible to get me back, like right at that moment, back into the mobilized state. Just having this conversation with him, I was like, this is very interesting. I should share this, since I think about this all the time. But I said to him as well, if I do have days where I am mobilized for a long time, you know, doing way more mobilized things, or this, I used to do this all the time, you know, with work, I'd have lots of mobilization and not enough rest ever. And so, but nowadays, I kind of know myself better, I guess. And so if I have a day where that's like chock full of activity, you know, like hours and hours and hours, or a few days or whatever, a lot of the times afterward, I'll need more time in my demobilized state so that I can recover. It's like, so my brain can recover, so everything can recover. And it's not even like an introversion thing. It's actually the being out of my natural demobilized state for a prolonged amount of time, you know, and it's like it's like the tide needs to kind of like roll back in, you know. It's like, okay, now I need the wave to come back before I can make another big attempt to whatever project, you know. So it's like the longer the wave goes up the beach, the more time it takes, the more time I need for it to like go back out again. Does that make any sense? Hopefully that makes sense. And I wanted to add to this, so the reason I think that's good for ENTJ, or I'm sorry, ENTP and INTP, the reason I think that's good for us to know is that it could kind of help us check ourselves. It could help us number one, and any other perceivers out there. Number one, to know that we're not necessarily just lazy. We might be lazy, you know. I'm not gonna like totally take that one and just be like, oh, we're not lazy, really, we're just have all this, like, it's just like you on the outside, it's me on the inside. That's actually true. But again, we want to stay in this place, you know, so we can get lazy. But I think it helps me to feel like, okay, this is part of how my cognition works, and I am figuring things out in here that some other people might be able to do better when they're actively doing it, you know? It helps me feel better in that way, but it also helps me to motivate myself. Like if I have been in my demobilized state for too long, then it helps me know that, okay, you will do this all day. You know, you will do this for as much time as you possibly can. What do you have to do today? So that I could kind of like realistically think about my day and think about the things that I need to be done. And then I will kind of like allot myself, not saying that it always works or that I could follow it, but I will try to be like, okay, if I'm planning my day, like here's how much demobilized time I need to like, you know, read about things, learn about whatever, think, you know, and then here's how much time I'm going to go and do this. And then maybe I can have like a little demobilized time. You know what I mean? But it kind of, it helps. It helps you learn to manage yourself and know what you need and not feel bad about it, I guess, you know, but also it helps you, it can help you a lot. It can help me to motivate myself to get into my mobilized state, even though it's not natural for me, because I know that I will overdo it in demobilization if possible, absolutely every time. So then for our ENTJ and INTJ, this explains a lot, right? This explains why they seem to have horrible, they're terrible at relaxing. They are not relaxers. And I've mentioned the quote for the ENTJ before, but I love it so much. I'm going to say it again. I read on a blog one time, this ENTJ lady said, I feel like a shark. I have to keep moving or I die, for how an ENTJ will conduct themselves. And it's so true, but it makes so much sense, doesn't it? If you think about, okay, that makes sense. Their first function is making decisions about the world around them. And so when they're comfortable, their natural state is already to be mobilized in doing things. And then they don't even have the buffer of the brainstorming process going on first a lot of the time. ENTJ brainstorms as they are making decisions, and this is why they are such excellent decision makers, and they are so good at working in real time. ENTJ does like to plan things out, and they do like to be efficient, and they do like to do things the right way, but ENTJs can almost be a little bit more like ENTPs in that way, because they rely on their intuition to pop up uh, and solve things in real time, basically. So even though ENTJ, they are long-term planners, you know, TE is a long-term planning kind of thing, but I don't know if ENTJ necessarily always gets into every little detail of it so much as like, okay, like here are the goals that I want to have done. You know, and I read too that a lot of the times we're more likely to break a big project up into little sections, kind of like I just said, probably so we can demobilize in between. Like I even told Damon, I was like, yeah, so I like get up and I finally take a shower. Then I need to demobilize. Then I get dressed. Then I demobilize. And then I get up and dry my hair. And by then, usually the hair drying, that'll finally get my engines going, right? Then I'll finally probably be like, okay, that was like a hassle enough that I guess I can just keep going. But not always. um, so where I did that in stages, you know, ENTJ would be like, I'm up, I'm in the shower, I'm dressed, I'm brushing my teeth, you know, I'm out the door, where I was like, oh, so much effort to do, you know. Uh, but and INTJ is the same way. INTJ might just like kind of think about, like, they might just like be INTJ is going to think about things more. You know, they're going to be listening to their intuition first, and so they're going to be making more plans. They're not going to be acting as they're not going to be as spontaneous as ENTJ, and they're probably going to have thought things out better than ENTJ as well. But even so, they want things to be happening. You know, they want tangible results. They want things to be happening in the real world. You know, they want, and so they're happy places to be mobilized. So this is helpful to know for them, because obviously both of these and people I have known, they can both have problems with relaxing. ENTJs are really terrible at it, but I have known INTJs who are also really terrible at it. And INTJs are a little bit less intense about it a lot of the time, because INTJ will go about it and include social activities a lot. Like they will find things that they like say concerts or playing volleyball or going to breweries or all of those things, you know. So INTJ, have found a lot of their mobilization, you know, sometimes it will come in the form of, okay, so they will have work, and that will be this kind of mobilization, and then maybe they'll have volleyball, and then maybe they'll have, you know, concerts, and then they're gonna go out with friends, you know. So whereas the ENTJ might be more going after one goal, like for 7 months or something. That's true too. Just one goal. That's all they have in mind, and they are going to plow through anything that they need to get to that goal. INTJ might be working on one goal for 7 months too, or maybe INTJ might work on it for 12 months because INTJ is gonna also have other types of mobilization happening, but still not very good at resting. Although I have seen INTJs kind of go into a state of just like flat, like bleh, you know. I don't think for very long though. Does this sound true for anyone at all? Because it really shocked me, at least with the INTJ males. And I have noticed that INTJ males are very different from INTJ females. And I'm also going to do a series on INTJs coming up, and I'll tell you why when I make the video. But I just I didn't know if I was credible enough to make a video on INTJs, because even though I have known a few and I have dated a couple, but not for very long, I didn't know if I really knew enough. Uh, I felt like I knew less about you INTJs as a personality type, but I was told that I should do it, so I'm gonna do it. But I do wonder if this sounds right, because I was surprised by the social ness, not of all INTJs, but a couple I've met are very active socially, you know, and sometimes even if not like with a group of people, it would still be like in a social setting with like, you know, getting some SE in, almost like kind of like an SE fix. Okay, so last thing I want to say is about an INTJ that I dated very briefly, and this this might help you kind of see what I'm talking about. So he super smart. I've made the comment before that INTJs are really smart and they don't always want to tell you about it. You know, they're not going to describe it to you because a lot of the times you INTJs think that whoever you're talking to isn't going to get it. And so this INTJ guy that I dated, like, I could follow, you know, he was in cancer research, drugs, and things like that. And it didn't really matter what he was talking about, if it was like logistics and where things were being made and this and that. I could follow him. But he was always editing himself to make it like dumbed down. And so then I would throw in things that like I might know about the topic. And he would always be like, so he couldn't really deal with the fact, or he wouldn't buy into, like, I don't know. He would never stop dumbing it down. And if I would throw in like some language that I knew to affirm that, hey, I know what you're talking about, you don't have to dumb it down at least that much for me, because I'm sure that I do not know what you know, but you could talk a little bit like, you know, maybe move me up to at least like fourth grade or something. But he never would, and it really pissed me off. It's like he didn't want to share what he knew with me or accept the fact that I might be able to follow. So, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore in this video. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off there. But I did. I'll come back to that topic. But he would run to work every day. So he ran to work, and it was like a 40-minute run, you know. So ran to work, and that he would work at this, you know, high stress job. It was a very high stress job, you know. He didn't get stressed that much, though, he said. But you know, he had to manage people, so he had to figure that one out, and he had to make things happen and figure lots of different parts of getting drugs made, you know. But he said anyway that he wasn't that stressed, and I believe him to a point. I think that he had figured out sort of how to deal with it. He is an interesting character, but I think the running to work and the running home every day was one of the ways he dealt with it. And this is the most fascinating part. At his house, he had a ball pit. So I guess I can put this down now. So he had a ball pit, like the balls at Chuck E. Cheese. So yeah, he got it on purpose because that is what he did. He would, like, not every day, but I think he would try to do it at least a few times a week or more. He would get in the ball pit, and that would be like his chill out time. Um, he would just, like, sometimes he would take a nap, sometimes he would just lay there. He said sometimes he would take a book, And so he'd read, or sometimes he'd even like have a beer or something like that. But it was very fascinating, and I thought it was really cool in a lot in the way that I was like, he's figured out how to deal with the stress, and also I think the FI, because I think FI can get kind of like confusing and tumultuous, and I think, I don't know, I think, can INTJs get angry? Anyway, we'll come back to this, but I think that's how he dealt with a lot of things, and I thought it was cool, that he had the running, but he was really intense about it. Like, he would not miss a day of running for anything. Like, he had to run every day. Um, yeah, it was like a religion, practically. And then the balls, like, that was kind of like worked in there too. But I did think, at least the balls part, I mean, the running too, but it was, like I said, it was intense. But I thought the balls part was cool because he kind of figured out, like, okay, I'm not very good at relaxing, so I need to actually make my relaxation place. Like, I need to be an INTJ about this. I need to come up with a plan. Okay, here, what is my, here's my ball pit. And so he had his like sturdy like little net thingy, and then he got the balls and then filled it up. He washes them. He washes the balls once a month. He washes them all off. Then they all dry out, puts them back in, and when you get in, like, you go up these little steps, you have to take your shoes off, and like, so, even though it's his relaxing place, it isn't. It's like special little part of the house, and like upstairs, it's the only thing in this little, like, kind of like, I don't know, like a platform kind of, and then you could even look over the balls and see down into like the living room and everything like that. But it was the only thing there, and it had rules for it, but it was the relaxing spot. So it's not like ENTP or INTP where we're just like, we would flop anywhere, it doesn't matter. And then we're just like, yeah, I get to like be back in like NETI or TINE land, Um, for him to demobilize, it had to be in this specific way, but he still figured it out. So I couldn't, I handed it to him for that. I thought that was really cool, and obviously didn't give an F if it was weird or not. Like, here's my balls, He was like, "Do you want to jump in?" Obviously, I did. I had to try it out. That sounded bad, but come on, you know what I mean. So I think that could be a lesson for ENTJs and any other INTJs out there, that you guys are terrible a lot of the time at demobilizing, but everybody needs to. Just like I need to get up and mobilize, or I'll feel bad about myself, and too much demobilization will also make me feel just like, blah, like I've got to go out to get into the world, even just to gather more NE fodder, NETI fodder, but, and I'm an extrovert, but I don't know, I feel very ambiverted because it's, anyway, you do need to have rest time so that you can be the best TENI NT superhero with that you can be. You do need the recuperation time, just like INTPs and ENTPs. We do need to mobilize. I will get depressed if I don't mobilize. So I'm thinking that INTJ and ENTJ, you might get depressed if you don't make it a priority to demobilize. So I wanted to tell that story just because I thought you don't have to be good, you guys, you ENTJs and INTJs, at just like randomly, spontaneously relaxing. But it's okay to plan your relaxation, plan a space for it and a time for it, and probably vacations help a lot too, right? But even if it's just like a little place in your house that you have absolutely like, uh, hermetically sealed, and like you have like exactly like 3 colors in it, and you have like there's no sound, I don't know, even if it is exactly to some crazy standard and not another human is involved or allowed in. I mean, as long as it makes you feel relaxed, that's really all that matters. I think that's everything. Hopefully that was informative and will be helpful for you, because it really is. I think about it all the time. I think like if I'm just like dated, I'm like, I'm in my natural state. I need to get out of it. Like probably every day. I think it at least once a day. And it does help motivate me. So I thought could be helpful for you guys as well. All right, I'm off to mobilize myself now, because even this was no, this was a mobilized activity for me, actually, because I had to like get ready, do my makeup, blah blah blah. But yeah, so this isn't so much demobilized, but it kind of is. It's kind of a hybrid. A lot of things are hybrids. ENTJs and INTJs, do you feel that anything is a hybrid for you in any way? Because like I said, driving for me a lot of the time, that's kind of like a hybrid. And Photoshop, meh, that's more demobilized. But doing this kind of feels like a hybrid, like actually talking with the purpose that this doesn't feel like my demobilized state. So I think it is a little bit of mobilization. But okay, I'm done now. I could just keep talking forever. So thanks for checking it out and let me know what you think. Bye, guys.